I am privileged to be with my friend Christina Steffen, who blessed me with this almost inchoate performance of Prairie, which is a piece of music that you will learn the backstory of in this wonderful video blog with Christina. But welcome from Northern Phoenix. Christina has been a steadfast steward, a citizen of flute choir, flute orchestral music, not only in performing it and possessing a large category of music at her home, but also in creating a series of flute choirs. We're going to hear from her and how she created the Desert Echo Community Flute Choir, which is really a flute orchestra. I think at its apex or its apogee comprises maybe 62 or 63 flutists from the local community and possibly even outside the community. But Christina, no better person to go to. Thank you for being here today in this video blog and complimenting us with your wisdom and I have to say, your legacy of flute choir and flute orchestral music. How did the Desert Echo Community Flute Choir come to be?
It's a pleasure and a delight to be with you, as always. Desert Echoes Flute Project is actually more than just a flute choir or an orchestra. And it was founded in 2006. We started with some of my former flute students who were at university and a few of our Mesa Community College flute majors. We had my alto flute, a borrowed bass flute. We had a group that was 7. Next semester, 14. In the summer, it was 21. And we were applying to play for the National Flute Association convention in 2007, and we needed a name. And the group voted on it. We combined two different names that were tied, and we came up with Desert Echoes Flute Project. We're very aware at the time of the slang meaning of deaf, D-E-F, being something that's cool or dope or excellent or first rate. So like, oh, that flute choir is deaf. So a little play on words that amused us at the time, and I guess was maybe a precursor to some aspirations that we didn't even know we had. I would never have imagined starting the group then what it would grow into today. So Deaf Project is the original flute choir, and it is currently a more rigorously auditioned flute choir or orchestra, and it's the ensemble that's performed at 5 National Flute Association conventions, we were invited for 3 pre-gala concerts. We performed at the 2014 San Francisco International Flute Festival. We were also invited to perform at the first International Low Flute Festival. We've performed a couple of concerts at the renowned Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix, and we've also been involved in some other community service performances over the years. So that was our original group. And the one that you met in 2007 at the clinic that you gave that we attended, which is where you and I met. And in 2011, I had the idea of taking a smaller number of flute players and forming something that was more of a chamber choir. So that was the beginning of our deaf chamber choir. And one of our first performances was actually this amazing, so much fun, Harry Potter themed educational concert at the Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix, otherwise known as the Hogwarts Satellite Campus. And we got to, through Harry Potter music and Phyllis Lauk's Wizards and Witches, we were able to present instruments of the flute family and also one of my personal interests, flutes from around the world. So we just had a blast with that. I even conducted with a wand. We rigged it up to like throw glitter so I could cast spells. It was a lot of fun. So I love being creative and doing those types of educational concerts. In 2016, which was our 10th anniversary, we decided to make the original group that audition-only ensemble. We still had our deaf chamber choir, and we added the deaf community flute choir. And this is that lovely, lovely group of flutists who performed Prairie in our first video project. And this group was open to all flutists, high school age and older. So we have students who are in high school, students who are in college, a lot of community flute players, retirees, returning flute players. We have some flutists who haven't played for 10, 20, and I think one of them told me it had been 30 years since she had touched her flute and decided she wanted to play again and joined the flute choir. We also have some educators and a few Deaf Project original the original group members who play in both of those groups, or actually all three of our groups. So that group is just, it's a wonderful, welcoming, supportive, inclusive ensemble with this wonderful age disparity and many levels within the ensemble. And it just works. They're a joy to work with and rehearse. So that's pretty much the performing ensembles that we have. And since we are sponsored by Mesa Community College, we are more than a performance organization now, and we've been able to sponsor educational programs, clinics, master classes. Every year we do, in Arizona, we have a regional and then an all-state audition for high school students for band and orchestra. So every year we host a regional etude day of master classes on all of the etudes, mock auditions, work on piccolo. Most of the clinicians, and the clinicians are all volunteers, but most of the clinicians come from our top group, Deaf Project. And the school has also enabled us, well, let me back up. In addition to providing rehearsal space and a beautiful concert hall that was finished in 2014, they've also supported some new endeavors of mine, such as the high school All Arizona Flute Choir, which I started in 2019. And two of my deaf colleagues were co-directors with me. And we had such a wonderful time working with these high school students and getting to see them bond and get really excited about flute music and see them make connections that were going to last for a while. We didn't anticipate that. And it was really just, it was a delight. I loved it. And that same summer, I guess I was overly ambitious that summer, I started the Summer Flute Project, which was a week-long educational program of concerts by our guest artists, topic classes, master classes, chamber ensembles, and flute choir. And the culmination of that week-long event was the Saturday Azflute Fest. And the chamber ensembles and the flute choir performed as part of that Azflute Fest. But even, equally importantly, we had our guest artist, April Clayton, in 2019, performed. She gave some master classes, a couple of other topic classes. We had 2 events going on at any point in time. One of my friends and colleagues, he's a clarinetist, but he does some work with ultrasound, and he did an ultrasound class on articulation, and you can see what's going on. So in real time, I asked April to volunteer, and she did. It was a lot of fun. So we could see what was going on through the ultrasound. It was just fascinating. So between performances and educational classes like that, it was really just a wonderful, wonderful day. That brought us to learning new ways of being together as a flute choir and a flute family. And thank heaven for technology like WebEx and Zoom that enable us to meet like this, kind of in person. And that was the evolution of performing Prairie from your piece, A Western Suite. A Western Suite was programmed for our May concert, and we never got a chance to even get together once to start working on that wonderful collection of movements. And I selected the Prairie because it was just so beautiful, and it seemed appropriate to kind of for everybody to lose themselves in something that was so pretty. And I love the backstory of how you were inspired with that piece.
I was working with filmmaker Nick Redman on a 20th Century Fox project called Ford at Fox, where I was asked to serve as executive music producer, scoring 2 silent films by John Ford, the seminal Iron Horse, and 4 Sons, while overseeing the scoring of 3 other films in the overall 24 DVD box set. A call from Nick, who was working on Mr. Ford's documentary to accompany the box set, asked me to compose a theme to capture the personality of his imagination. His daring, sensitive, courageous, craftsmanlike, tough, and above all, adorable Mr. Ford, who was the only person to win Academy Awards for 4 feature films, of which he directed more than 130 in a 4-decade career. He also won a 5th Oscar for his direction of a documentary during World War II. He acquired his formal education at Fox, directing over 50 silent films, some of which were directly under the scrutiny of Charles Fox himself. I remember that morning, very early morning to this day. I heard the theme in my dreams at 3:30 in the morning, as often music comes to me. I woke up, sat upright in my bed, and I knew right away I had the perfect idea. I ran to the guitar and played it through, then sat down and I scratched out the idea on paper. My head was already engulfed in material for the score to The Iron Horse, which necessitated over 110 minutes of orchestral music that I had to write in 5 weeks. And yet, for some reason, this theme demanded to be realized. Later that morning, knowing Nick would be up by 7, I called him and played it for him over the phone. The rest is history. I wrote 5 arrangements for the theme and recorded them as part of my Iron Horse sessions at Capitol Records in Hollywood. This one is performed by my dear friend Sheridan Stokes. I was told by Nick that the theme has a poetic verisimilitude, something believable, true to life, that if Mr. Ford were alive today, would feel a certain kinship with. A leitmotif that would identify with his craft and determination as an artist to define what America was on the silver screen.
Talk about the technology, how you actually did this and managed to keep people involved by performing online.
As I mentioned before, I really wanted to keep our flute community together, and I was able to contact everybody individually. I made it through almost everybody, I think, before we resumed. And we had a couple of weeks off. We had just done a big concert on March 6th, and we had spring break. And then right when we were supposed to come back, we had our stay-at-home orders. And everything was kind of canceled and on hold for a couple of weeks. So I had time to do a lot of research, and I realized that there was no way we could actually rehearse together, no matter how many people said, oh, why don't we get together on Zoom and rehearse. Because of the internet connectivity and the varying rates of speed, it's just not viable. So I've ended up doing things a little bit differently with online, and I really wanted to do a video project. So I've conceived of this idea of together separately. And the Prairie was our first video project with the Community Flute Choir. We just dropped our second one with the other group about a week or 2 ago. It's a big learning curve for everybody, but I was using WebEx as mandated by Mesa Community College. They preferred it for security reasons at the time. And we had intended, I had programmed the entire Western suite for our May concert with the Community Flute Choir. And of course, that concert wasn't going to happen. We never even started to work on it together. And I thought of the third movement, Prairie, is just so beautiful. It's a beautiful movement. I thought because of everything that was going on, it would be nice to start with that, because it just seemed appropriate for everybody to be able to kind of lose themselves in something that was so pretty for a short period of time, whether you're playing it or listening to it. And so I chose to do that. I made the part assignments. We got together on WebEx. It was great to see everybody after having about a 3-4 week break. So we all checked in with each other. And then we started talking about the piece. We actually studied all 4 of the movements as part of the class. But we focused on the Prairie. We did some score study together. We actually rehearsed silently. I would conduct. We also did sectionals. I was also available for some one-on-one coaching with people. And what I ended up doing, oh, and we also listened. We listened to that NFA performance with John Barcelona conducting.
Okay. Yeah.
So we all listened to the entire suite, but focused on that. So there was, different approaches between, trying to play, doing some one-on-one, talking through the parts, score study, and actually listening. I learned how to create a click track on my TE Tuner app.
Okay.
So I created that click track, and I did try to build in a little bit of flexibility so that it didn't just sound so rigid all the time. And then what I ended up doing for the community flute choir, and thank heaven for all of our devices and technology today, I played the click track through my laptop, turned it up really loud, and then I recorded everybody's parts individually with my cell phone, and then I sent that out. So if you were playing the flute 3 part, you had just the click track. You also had the click track with me playing your part as a reference. And it was like a good comfort level when you're playing along with somebody else instead of really out in left field. I mean, it was very disconcerting to me, even just recording these parts. I started with the bass flute and then went through the alto and worked my way up. And without, you know, that pitch reference, I'm used to listening harmonically, and there was nothing to listen to that way. So just very much trying to play as in tune as I could. And then I sent those out for everybody to practice with. And when we were ready, everybody recorded the click. I mean, they used the click track on one device, and then they had to use a headset or earbuds, whatever they chose, to listen, but you couldn't have it so loud that it would bleed through. Then they would use a second device to make the video. I wanted to keep everybody engaged in this, not just playing. It has kind of evolved over the years that we change our concert attire from concert to concert. It might just be on a whim. It might be something that's thematic to what we're doing. Like we do a Latin concert, we tend to do a lot of like reds and oranges and those kind of fiery colors. So for this, we discussed it, and we wanted to kind of have somewhat of a Western theme. And it's also in keeping with, we're based in the Phoenix metropolitan area. So we decided visually, everybody would wear some type of solid top. Color was up to them. And we all wore bandanas. So however you chose to wear it, but if you look at the video, everybody's wearing a bandana. And then I encouraged, if you had, you know, more Western wear that you wanted to wear in the video, you could do that. So one of our alto flutists, I mean, he looks awesome. He's got a Western shirt on. He's got the cowboy hat. He's got the bandana. Someone else, we stress the importance of, you know, the acoustic environment, and maybe we can come back to that in just a moment. She actually recorded in her bedroom closet, big walk-in closet. She's got all those clothes sucking up the sound, keeping it really dry, and hung this wonderful throw that had like a couple of horses. It looked like a Western, and that was her backdrop for her video. I know, it was just amazing. So people got to be really creative in terms of their presentation as well. So I really enjoyed that. I do not have the skills whatsoever to do the audio engineering or the video editing. I mean, I own on my laptop, you know, Logic Pro, and then the Pro video editing. The name doesn't come to me at the moment. But I didn't have those skills. So fortunately, I had just sent out, and I'm so thankful. I mean, I have to say, when I talk about a flute family, it really is a family, and there are a lot of contributions from a lot of our members. I mean, we have someone who does our design and media. So he does all of our programs and our flyers, and each one is different and they're tied into each other. He also will do some of our work on the Facebook page, and we'll clean up our website and do things there. Another flute member who doesn't even live in the state anymore does our Instagram. We have someone who does our concert video editing. Years ago, someone designed our logo. This is all from our deaf members. We have a wonderful librarian, and now we have 2 people who are going to be doing video projects. One is Tony Simuel, who volunteered to take on this. He'd never done a virtual project like this, let alone like 35 separate videos uploaded. So it was a learning curve for everybody, but he volunteered to take this on. So everybody submitted their videos to him, and he put them all together. And it was pretty cool because he set up he was limited to 3 hours, but he set up a broadcast. So it was delayed, but I could hear, you know, at home what he was doing at his home, and we could talk about how to edit the sound and adjust balance, or if I heard something that was off, so we could fix it, and then we'd just talk on the phone. So it was wonderful to be able to do that again, together separately.
Sure, sure.
So he actually, this was his first attempt at a video project. He's getting a little more adventurous now, but I thought it came out just beautifully. I was just so excited and happy with how it sounded.
And with that, let's cut and hear Prairie with Deaf playing.
The Deaf Community Flute Choir.
The Deaf Community Flute
Yeah, this
Choir.
is our group that's, if you play the flute and you're high school age or older, we have a place for you.
There you go.
One, two, three, four.
Christina, allow me to ask you, since this is such a unique group and it's got a long history, as you explained for us, what's its future history? Where's the group going? Future performances? How are you handling COVID-19? And what can you share with us?
Still live online, and I imagine we'll be in that format for quite a while. The community college is basically not having too many people on campus. So we'll be live online through the end of the semester. I imagine that we'll be live online for the spring semester as well. So we're going to keep doing these video projects. It'll be a series as long as it needs to be. Finally was able to, in the summer of 2019, start a week-long summer flute project, which is a combination of performing in small ensembles, flute choir. We have guest artists coming in and doing classes. Our guest artists will do a recital and then master classes. So it's a combination of a lot of different really wonderful educational things for students, high school through adult. And our first summer was just really, I'll quote somebody else, they said it was epic. And I didn't expect the bonding that went on between people. And then the last day of the Summer Flute Project, it's included with that week-long, is the Azflute Fest. I started a flute festival that was hosted at our beautiful Performing Arts Center. And we had April Clayton was our guest artist coming in from out of town. And we had a lot of classes, master classes, topic classes, and performances going on, two things at the same time. And of course, we had flute makers there. Burkhart, because April is a Burkhart artist, they were there. And we had great plans for last summer. Sarah Jackson was our guest artist coming in for a couple of days. So we were all just very, very sad to break that momentum. But we do more than just flute choir. I also, and again, this broke my heart to not be able to do it this year, but in 2019, I started our first all Arizona flute choir. So all of the flutists in the state who made regionals were eligible to participate in a flute choir. It was a day and a half full of rehearsals and some classes. You had an opportunity to play low flutes if you'd never played them before and you were curious about them. Two of my wonderful colleagues in the flute world and in music education were my co-directors. So you were exposed to 3 different directors, and we gave a concert, and it was a wonderful experience working with those high school students. So we're also very much involved in educational aspects, not just performance aspects with our program. And again, that goes to Mesa Community College because they sponsor us, they give us the space, they support these ideas that I have, and make it a whole lot more possible for us to do the things that we want to do. And that's Desert Echoes Flute Project at Mesa Community College.
And this is Christina Steffen, a maverick and entrepreneur. And without your energy, I wonder if these things subsist, carry on for so long a period of time, and leave behind and look forward to an even greater enriching history.
Yeah.
All right, I'm off to help.
All right, take care.
Love you, lady.
Bye.
Okay? So proud
Thank
of you. You're amazing.